Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here with my March 2023 most anticipated releases. Usual disclaimers about how these are going to be all over the place in terms of how much I know about them, and also a huge variety of genres, age ranges, all those things. I will link the previous ones I've done. I don't know if I'm doing like a playlist or what. All of the books will be linked in a pinned comment down below. And I have a ton of books for March, like way more than in February and January. Some of them are also some of my most anticipated releases for the whole year. So I'm gonna try to keep this pretty concise. We'll see. But let's just dive right into it. Let me move over so I can actually put some book covers up. Is that enough room? We'll find out. So starting on March 2nd, I don't think I've mentioned this one before. I have Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati. This is a historical fiction novel centering on Clytemnestra, who I love. She does horrible things, but I think she is so interesting, and I feel like she is a historical or like mythological figure who kind of gets like unfairly vilified for things that happen like all the time in Greek mythology, and yet she's portrayed as like a horrible monster when I think there are some very extenuating circumstances. So I am really looking forward to that one. Then also on March 2nd, I have Onyeka and the Rise of the Rebels by Tola Okogwu. This is the second book in the Onyeka and the Academy of the Sun series. I really enjoyed the first one, and this is a kind of sci-fi fantasy blend. Our main character is a young black girl who finds out one day that her hair has like superpowers, which I just think is very cool. It says perfect for fans of Percy Jackson, Amari and the Night Brothers, and Black Panther. I feel like that's a pretty good summary of like the vibe of this series, at least based on the first book. Then on March 7th, I have What Stays Buried by Suzanne Young. This is a creepy middle grade, like looks actually like it could be considered middle grade horror. That sounds super interesting. So our main character is named Callista. It says she is 12 years old and she'll lose her ability to speak with the dead on her 13th birthday, but then children start going missing. And so she meets the tall lady, an angry spirit with a grudge against Callista, her family, and the entire town. And Callista knows that this is who is responsible, and she's the only one who can see this. She can see her, the tall lady, and she has to stop her before she loses her abilities. And it says if she doesn't, Callista won't just lose her powers, she'll lose everyone she has left. I think this looks super good, super interesting, and very atmospheric. Also on March 7th, I have Rosewood, A Midsummer Meet Cute by Sayantani Dasgupta. This is a like modern retelling of Sense and Sensibility, and I'm so excited. Also, I love this cover so much. Yeah, it's about our main characters. Okay, so they're at like a summer camp where the campers are getting scouted for a hit Bridgerton-like TV show, and I think she starts getting feelings for one of the guys there. I think that looks super fun. I have enjoyed things I've read by this author before. Then on March 7th as well, I have There Goes the Neighborhood by Jade Adia. This is a book about gentrification, and it looks like there might actually be a murder mystery element in it as well, because our main character and a couple of her friends start kind of trying to fight back against the gentrification of their neighborhood, but then a murder gets pinned on them, and I guess they have to try and solve it, as well as keeping their community safe. It says, There Goes the Neighborhood is a love letter to communities of color everywhere, a middle finger to the destructive powers of gentrification, and a hilarious adventure about three teens who have the best intentions, if not always the best solutions. I think that sounds super interesting. Also on March 7th, Chloe and the Kaishao Boys by Mei Koito. This is about our main character, who is a Chinese Filipina girl. It's also set in Manila, so that's very cool. And she's officially off the waitlist at USC, so she's really excited for that. But before she leaves, her father is trying to set her up on like really awkward arranged dates, or kaishaos, and she's had enough. She doesn't want to do this, but she actually ends up caring about one of the guys. But how is that going to work when she has to leave at the end of the summer? That one sounds fun, but like it's also going to deal with some like deeper topics, which I feel like YA contemporaries often do and don't often get credit for. Then also on March 7th, I have One I Heard About from Ashley at Bookish Realm. You guys know I basically always mention her in my anticipated releases. This is Royal Blood by Amy Carter. This looks like a super interesting, like twisty kind of thriller that's also a contemporary and also like a royalty book. So our main character is an American girl who is the King of England's illegitimate daughter, and so she ends up going to stay with him for a while, and then I think murders start happening, and she is like the primary suspect, and so she's trying to figure out who actually killed this person, and there's like family secrets and lots of scandal and drama, and I just think this looks super interesting. I did at first, from the title and the cover, for some reason I thought this was like a suspense thriller about like royalty who are actual vampires. But I don't think that's what this is. I don't know. Maybe. I think I'm probably thinking of that because of the Susanna Roundtree series that I've read. Also on March 7th, I have one that like I knew about, but what really put it on my radar was Beautifully Bookish Bethany's review that she did on it recently, and that is My Dear Henry by Kaylin Barron. Did I say also on March 7th? So this is in the Remixed Classics series, and this is a retelling of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and Bethany just had really good things to say about it. She was talking about how it's a real commentary on the homophobia and racism of the time period, and I just think that sounds super interesting. I anticipate liking it more than the original because I did not care for the original. Then, also on March 7th, we have The Moth Keeper by Kay O'Neill. This is a graphic novel that is, it's a fantasy graphic novel, and I have heard it's a lot about like, I don't know, like self-care and like burnout and like taking care of yourself, but it's like in a fantasy setting. It says Kay O'Neill brings to life a beautifully illustrated fantasy world about responsibility to yourself and your community. The Moth Keeper is filled with magic, hope, and friendship. I think that sounds wonderful. Then, one of my most anticipated releases for the whole year, Enter the Body by Joy McCullough. This is on March 14th, and this, like, I'm already so like emotional about the concept of this book. So this is about several different Shakespearean women who had really tragic stories and like reclaiming them, and I think they all become friends and like kind of bond and help each other like heal, and it makes me, like I said, emotional already. It's a novel in verse, and it follows Juliet, Ophelia, Cordelia, and Lavinia. And the title, I don't remember if I saw this officially, but like it has to be a reference to I think I remember the author saying something actually, but it's a reference to in King Lear, one of the female characters like is just described at the end as like enter the body with, and then it's like the male character, and he has his big moment like over her corpse, and I think it's really like dealing with that that idea, the way that like women's bodies are used in Shakespeare in ways that are sometimes not about them, you know, it's about other people, specifically men. So you guys know I love Shakespeare, but I also love critiquing Shakespeare, so I think this is going to be incredible. I'm sure it's going to make me cry, but I love and trust Joy McCullough. Then also on March 14th, I have Whistleblower by Kate Marchant. So it's a story about a young journalist, and I believe it is connected to or inspired by the Me Too movement, and also specifically how that intersects with sports. Our main character Laurel ends up doing a story on the school's beloved football coach, but it uncovers a pattern of misbehavior and a trail of lies. And so it's about how she decides to stand up for the truth and for doing what's right, and how like the public backlash affects her. But I think this is going to be a really important one, but also very intense, so definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, I think this sounds good. It was originally a Wattpad book, and I need to work on not making assumptions about books like that, because there are definitely some that are, you know, like not the best from what I've heard, but that doesn't mean all of them are. And especially because I read so many fantastic independently published books, I should understand that a Wattpad book does not necessarily mean it's not going to be well done, or it's going to be like a certain kind of story. So I need to work on that. And this one sounds like a fantastic book. Then another one of my most anticipated releases for the whole year, also on March 14th, I have A Bit of Earth by Karuna Riazi. The only thing I really know about this is that it is a Secret Garden retelling by a South Asian author, specifically a Pakistani author, and I have been waiting for something like this for so long, because even though I love The Secret Garden and it's a very important and formative book for me, there are some significant problems with it, and I think this book is going to really engage with those and handle those, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait for this book. Also on March 14th, I have Midnight Strikes by Ziba Shahnaz. This is a fantasy with a time loop element, which I don't know. I need to work out how I feel about time loops, because there are some that I think I do really enjoy, even though it's not a trope I think of as being something I like to pick up. And so it's a provincial girl who has to work together with a prince to stop an attack on the royal family and escape a nightmarish curse that forces them to relive the same night again and again. I think that sounds just like super interesting in a fantasy setting. Also on March 14th, I have Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell. absolutely stunning cover. So this is our main character Clara has magic that is related to flowers, and I don't really know. I'm looking at the synopsis and I'm like, yeah, this sounds good, but I don't remember a lot of this. So like, I don't know why, like this just seems like something I will really enjoy. Maybe I saw a couple authors blurb it who I trust. But yeah, I definitely want to read this one. I actually own this author's other book and have not read it because that's what we do. Also on March 14th, I have The Renaissance of Gwen Hathaway by Ashley Schumacher. This is a contemporary with a plus-size heroine who, I think she's like working at a Renaissance fair. Yeah, definitely. And there's like a romance element, and I just think this sounds great. I love the idea of the setting, and it's always exciting to see more body diversity. And then I think the last one I have on March 14th, hopefully I haven't missed anything, is Dear Medusa by Olivia A. Cole. And this is a novel in verse following a girl who is coping with sexual abuse. So it's going to just, again, keep that in mind. Gabrielle Union blurbs it as more than a story about sexual violence. This book is about race, sexuality, love, and how anger can be a catalyst for healing. So I think that sounds really, really interesting. And like I said, it's a novel in verse. I believe there's also a sapphic romance. And I think this is specifically going to do with abuse from a teacher. So again, lots of content warnings associated with this one, but I think it sounds really important. Okay, and then the last group of books should be a lot fewer because there's, I think, fewer near the end of the month. I'm telling you, March is just an exciting release month for me. Okay, March 21st, I have Tiger Lily and the Secret Treasure of Neverland by Sherry Dimeline. I know almost nothing about this except that it is a Peter Pan retelling by a native author, and I love that. I really loved Sisters of the Neversea, which was also a retelling by a native author, and I really don't know that much about what the plot of this one is. I haven't read anything from Sherry Dimeline before, even though I know people enjoy her. The only things I know are what I've already told you, and that's enough to have me very excited. Then, also on March 21st, I have a picture book that is My Powerful Hair by Carol Lindstrom, illustrated by Steph Littlebird. So this is a picture book about, it says family history, self-expression, and reclaiming your identity. And it is specifically about our main character, who is a young native girl specifically, who is really excited about growing her hair out really long. And it's about how important that is to her, and it deals with residential schools. I'm just gonna read a section from the summary. Mom never had long hair. She was told it was too wild. Grandma couldn't have long hair. Hers was taken from her. But one young girl can't wait to grow her hair long, for herself, for her family, for her connection to her culture and the earth, and to honor the strength and resilience of those who came before her. I think that sounds wonderful, and I have really, really loved Carol Lindstrom's other books that I've read. Then on March 28th, I have Grey Mist Fair by Francesca Zappia. This looks like a very spooky, atmospheric one. So it's like a murder mystery that has some like dark fairy tale elements. There's like a village hidden in the trees, and like the woods are like dangerous. I'm doing a horrible job of explaining this. Okay, so a young tailor discovers a body on the road, and all the villagers know they should never step off the road and go into the forest, but our main character ends up having to investigate. Yeah, it's going to be very spooky. Like I said, a murder mystery element. It says, inspired by the original, bloody, lesser-known fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, acclaimed author Francesca Zappia crafts an enthralling murder mystery that will keep readers turning the pages. It also says features chapter decorations by the author throughout, as well as a map. So I pretty much always like when books have illustrations in them, so that's very cool. Then, also on March 28th, we have Stars and Smoke by Marie Lu. This is the first book in an upcoming series. Is it sci-fi? Why do I think it's sci-fi? Okay, no, I think it might actually just be a contemporary. I don't know why I was thinking this had a sci-fi element. But it's an enemies to lovers story, which we know I'm trash for when it's done well. And I have really, really enjoyed a lot of the things I've read from Marie Lu. I think basically everything I've tried from her, I've really liked. And one of our main characters is a pop star and the other one is a spy. Okay, and so the reason these two characters collide is because there's like this major crime boss who like organizes like a concert using like featuring the pop star, and this is going to be a prime opportunity to infiltrate the organization. So our heroine, Sydney as the spy, and so she gets assigned as like Winter, the pop star's like bodyguard, and they end up like spending a lot of time together. This is like even better than I remember the synopsis being, so I'm like very excited for this one. Also March 28th, I have Chaos and Flame by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. I have DNF'd one book from Tessa Gratton, and that's the only experience I've really had with her, but I have really enjoyed, have I only read one book by Justina Ireland? I guess. I read Ophi's Ghost, which I absolutely loved, and this is like a fantasy novel featuring ancient magic, warring factions, and a romance between the two people in the world with the most cause to hate one another. I like the sound of that. Yeah, I just think that sounds super interesting, and I'm willing to give it a try, and I do think I could like things by Tessa Gratton. I guess I picked a bad one to start with for me. Okay, just a few more, you guys. Also on March 28th, The Fairy Bargains of Prospect Hill by Rowena Miller. It says, enchanting historical fantasy about sisterhood and self-discovery. A woman does everything she can to help her sister escape her husband. So it looks like it deals with domestic violence and a strong sister relationship. There's like a fairy bargain, like kind of fair folk, old world type things. A lot of things that I think sound really interesting, and I feel like I just like have a good feeling about this book. I think I'm gonna love it. I hope I'm gonna love it. And then one of my, again, most anticipated books for the entire year, I have Hamra and the Jungle of Memories by Hannah Alkaf. Hannah Alkaf is officially an auto by author for me. I have absolutely loved, I think, everything that I've read from her, because I've read 2 full novels, and then I've read some short stories, at least one short story from her, and I just think she's an incredible writer. I love her characterization. I love the way she does her themes, often incorporating grief, and this is a Malaysian spin on Little Red Riding Hood. That's all I know. It doesn't matter. I trust Hannah Alkaf implicitly, so I can't wait for this one. Also an absolutely gorgeous cover. Also on March 28th, I have Last Sunrise and Eterna by Amparo Ortiz. I have not actually read her other series. I need to do that, but this is like I think magical competition where there's like humans who have to compete, and then there's also elves involved. This is another one that I'm like, I knew I was interested in it and excited for it, obviously, but like as I'm rereading the synopsis, I'm like, this sounds even better than I remembered. Yeah, so I think, again, hate to love, very different people. We have a human main character and then an elf prince, and I think they have to work together for some reason. So I just think that sounds good. And then finally, on March 30th, I have The Secrets of Heartwood Hall, and that is by Katie Lumsden, who is actually a booktuber here. I will link her down below. But this is a gothic mystery it's set in 1852. We're following a young widow as the main character who gets hired as a governess, and spooky things start happening. Yeah, I just think this sounds really fantastic. It calls it an authentic and atmospheric love letter to Victorian fiction. So I think that sounds really interesting. Okay, everyone, I think those are all of my most anticipated books for March. I know that was a lot. I am so glad I am doing these monthly this year. I don't even want to think about how long it would have been if I tried to include that with a couple other months. But let me know if you are also really excited about any of these or a different book in March that you're looking forward to. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!